What's up, family? I want
What's
to,
up?
hey, today I'm here with Dr. Dominique Lewis. It's an honor to be here with you on this podcast. How are you doing today, Doctor?
I'm very good on yourself.
Man, I'm super, super, super blessed. It is raining outside, but you know what? I was just thinking about it. Without this water, there would be no life. And I'm sure you can touch it more on the bio chemical necessity of water. But Doctor, man, it's an honor to have you today on NetStep Talks with Dr. Lewis. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and what got you into the field of working with people's feet.
Long story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. I'm from Trinidad originally. I grew up there, stayed there till I was about 16. Came up to Washington D.C. on a soccer scholarship, and I went to college at a place called American University. Then, I actually was in chemistry, did a chemistry major, and then I went into a PhD program in chemistry. Actually hated it. Well, not the chemistry itself. I hated the lab, the future. Like the future would be writing grant proposals for the rest of your life. So my best friend was in medical school at Emory. We grew up together in Trinidad, and he said, "Well, why don't you check this out?" So I went down there for about a week or so. Went to classes with him, and I was like, this is cool. I like the subject matter. I could do that. And I'd like to say the rest is history. And it is on some level because I then applied to med school, uh, went to Georgetown for medical school, and then did my residency in orthopedics at Howard University. Um, and funny enough, after orthopedic residency at Howard, I did my fellowship in foot and ankle surgery at the American Sports Medicine Institute, which is in Birmingham. It's a pretty well
Wow.
known place
Yes.
in orthopedics. And, people always ask me, well, why did I go into foot and ankle? I'm like, well, in all honesty, feet didn't gross me out. Many orthopedic surgeons don't really like feet. It didn't gross me out. It was not a popular specialty area at the time I decided to do it. So I did it. And, but, I would have to go back to medical school because it came from, there was a well known foot and ankle orthopedic surgeon at Georgetown, a guy named Paul Cooper, who, I had the opportunity to be in his room for a couple of cases, and it was at first scary but amazing. And from there, I would say the rest is history.
Nice. Nice. So you've been in the industry what now? What, 15 years, 20 years?
15 years.
Yeah, 15 years.
I know I look young, but 15 years. Yeah.
So how has it been to build a practice? I know you're located here in Miami, more specifically Aventura, Florida. Like, how has that experience been post medical school? Dealing with patients and insurance and all the difficulties I hear doctors go through.
Very well, I would say evolving. It's changed a lot since I started, and it will continue to change over time. Um, when I first moved down here after fellowship, I think at the time there may have been three or four foot and ankle fellowship trained orthopedic surgeons in, South Florida, Miami area.
Okay.
Uh, I would say at that point in time, there's Barry University here where they train a lot of podiatrists, right? Podiatry is I wouldn't say different, but it's sort of it's different training, right? So it's almost like an ophthalmologist versus an optometrist. Um, they so there've always been a lot of podiatrists in the area, and the area is sort of conditioned to seek foot and ankle care with podiatrists. So the early parts of my career here would be more about, I would describe it as sort of trying to re-educate the population to some extent, and making your name in an area that people were used to going in a different direction.
Okay.
Uh, so I actually joined a private group, um, which is in Aventura, and I've been there for the entire time. Now, medicine in general, or at least I'll say orthopedics, I can't speak for everybody, but it's kind of similar across the board. Medicine in general has changed, even from the time, even in the 15 years I've been there. Uh, I would say, unfortunately, uh, the hospital systems have sort of used their economic power to sort of take over medicine on some level. Medicine historically used to be like, you get out of medical school, you open up a shop, you put up your shingles, and
Mm,
people come see you for healthcare. It's kind of like, I like to describe it like, back in the day, there would be like a community pharmacy or a
mm,
community general store or something. And then, like the big Walmarts and the CVS's and Walgreens, they came in and they pretty much took over the business. Well, the same thing is happening in medicine
mm,
and has been happening. So the big hospital systems, like the Baptists, the HCAs, they have been essentially hiring doctors, and uh, so they are now, I would say, in a dominant position because it's sort of economies of scale too. They are now in a dominant position. I personally don't think it's better for the consumer, but you know, that's a debate that we are having right now.
okay.
You know,
Okay. Wow. So overall, being in this specialty, podiatry, what are like a lot of people in the community? Why do they come see you? I get the fact that the industry's changing, but what's not changing, right, is the human factor, which is uh,
people get sick.
people get sick, people
I
die.
mean, yeah,
What's the statistic? 1 out of 1 person or 10 out of 10 people die.
yeah,
So
right.
I,
I never heard that one, but I like that one.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think funeral homes and doctors are going anywhere anytime soon. Long as people get sick. But what are I mean, when I think of foot problems, I usually think of like my brother struggle with bunions, and I think of like fungus or fungi, and um, I know my dad had he had diabetes, and I
right,
think there's even an actual uh, diagnosis for that. Like, and he had a lot of foot problems because of that. He used to
right.
itch and different things. So, what are like some of the common things people come to you for that generally kind of treat? And then my question after that is, what are those rare extraordinary situations?
So you could probably put it into various categories. Like there's a traumatic stuff. You break a bone, something falls on your foot, or uh, you fall, something happens. You break bones. You may have ligament injuries, that sort of stuff. That's traumatic. There's what I also call sort of like the sports type things, which would be, people playing sports and they sprain their ankle, or something of that nature, tendon ruptures, like Achilles tendon ruptures, and so on. There are sort of the attritional injuries, which you would think of more as like, I keep doing something over and over and over and over. Our bodies are almost like machines to an extent, right? So just like a car will need an oil change every so often, you'll need to add some fuel here and there. We need every so often we need help to replenish. So those are what we call the attritional injuries. And of that, I would say the thing that I probably see the most on that level is plantar fasciitis. Everybody complains of heel pain. You know, this thing where you get up first thing in the morning and that first step, the first few steps you make are so painful. That's probably the most common thing I see.
Okay.
Then I would say there are sort of the the disease processes that are secondary to something else. So like diabetes being the biggest example. People who are diabetics tend to have a lot of foot issues, some of which comes from the fact that one of the things that potentially happens to many diabetics is they could get neuropathy, wherein you lose sensation, which leads to a whole bunch of like a whole bunch of different things. You could get these deformities. Uh, because of the lack of sensation and stuff, these patients sometimes get simple lacerations that, with a compromised immune system, leads them into more trouble than if the average person just simply gets a cut. And finally, more and more today, I would say uh, there's becoming a little bit more of a aesthetic component to foot and ankle. You know, bunions and hammer toes, and people wanting everybody, is on Instagram now, and everybody kind of wants to be a foot model on some level. So, like it brings up things for us that we never really thought of, but there's an aesthetic component to it now, I would say.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole like foot toe fetish thing.
Yeah.
People,
Yeah.
and I think, and the reality is that, yeah, there's some people that are turned on by feet, right? I mean,
Oh,
this is
they
not just
are
a medical issue. This is a sexuality issue, right? Or a sexy issue.
sexuality. Funny enough, people often ask me, so do you have a foot fetish? And actually, I say no, because if I had a foot fetish, I wouldn't be doing what I do,
That's
because I'm
totally,
actually seeing the gnarly feet. I'm not
yeah,
seeing the pretty feet.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah.
so when it, so tell me a little bit about why you are a NetStep partner, and what is the role of custom orthotics, right?
Yeah.
Um, in helping people not only redeem their feet but prevent them from some of these common issues. Like, what's the role of custom orthotics?
So if we go one step back, let's think about the foot itself. The foot itself is a small structure, barely bigger than the hand, right? But it carries all of your weight. Not only does it carry weight, as in if you're standing there, but you also need locomotion, which is the act of moving, right? So it needs to carry your weight in movement, and in different forms of movement also. So we're talking about walking, we're talking about running, we're talking about jumping, and all of the above. All of these things, from a you could look at it from a risk of injury perspective. You could look at it from an attritional perspective. All of these things put stress on the feet, and some people are able to take it for long. Some people break down at times, and what the point of orthotics then is to sort of, it works in two formats. We could think of it as a preventative option, as in a support option for people who need a little bit of extra support. And that extra support could be in the form of simply just needing extra padding. So, like I mentioned, the diabetics before. Diabetics, because sometimes they're insensate, like we teach them, like you need to check your foot, but sometimes they need extra support. So it's customary, and Medicare even does this, where these diabetics, we put them into orthotics that are very well padded. And the whole point is just support and comfort, right? Then there is, you may have had an injury or you may have a deformity itself, right? That makes it sometimes difficult to walk or even difficult to get into a shoe. So orthotics can be helpful from a therapeutic standpoint, therefore, in allowing those patients to be more, to increase their function, to be more functional, to get into shoes, to be able to do more, to be able to walk for longer, to be able to even sometimes get back into sports. Then at the other end, the more active end of it, uh, everybody's exercising now. You know, most people are exercising. People are way more concerned about their general health. They're concerned about how they look. And so people are exercising, people are running, people are going to the gym, people are playing sports, all of these things. And when you do that, it's like, you know, I used a car analogy before. You could drive your car 30 miles an hour every day for the next 50 years and it'll last long. But if you want to take that car 100 miles an hour every day, it's not going to last that long, right? So, in terms of orthotics and the foot, the point would be if you're going to sort of put more stress on the foot than it's used to, or its basic building is for, then you adding more support should give you more longevity. It could increase performance, increase functionality, and everything. So, I see it. I see it. I think it's sort of in that gap between medicine and you know what should I say? Um, Functional body management. Like people go to the gym and work out. Like orthotics will be helpful for that.
Okay, great, 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 great. And when it comes to NetStep, how is NetStep's process revolutionary and helpful for the patient or the consumer that needs these custom insoles?
So twofold. So or multiple fold, I would say. Historically, in my practice here, for example, many times orthotics will not be covered by the insurance companies because the insurance companies will not pay for anything that they don't have to pay. And they are actively also trying to find, um, I guess, probably in their parlance, ways of cutting costs, which to me and to the average consumer really reads as paying for and covering as minimal as they have to, right? So most times patients don't have access to orthotics through insurance. So historically, there are very few scenarios where orthotics would be covered by insurance. So historically, what tends to happen is patients would come in and you might recommend it, but more often than not, they can't afford it because orthotics are pretty expensive. Uh, Additionally, you wouldn't get orthotics without essentially a doctor's visit, right? Because it doesn't, because orthotics are seen at from a medical device perspective as solving a problem. I think orthotics fit both ways. It could solve a problem and it could also prevent problems
Mm,
from occurring, right? We will never get, well, as of right now, maybe it will change, but as of right now, orthotics will not be covered by insurance from a preventative standpoint, except in the case of diabetics, like I mentioned before, right? And so, by what I think NetStep does is by offering it directly to the consumer, right? It actually saves the consumer money on the cost,
okay.
right? It also opens up the the sort of teaching patients and I would say consumers about how orthotics can be an enhancer to their daily activities to helping them work out. People spend tons of money to get the right bike or the right shoe, you know. They spend tons of money to get the appropriate massages, the
Absolutely.
trainers, all of these things. All the same, it's all the same perspective to me. You're trying to make yourself better, stronger functionally and everything. And this is one of those products that just hasn't been thought of that way in general, I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think and here we are looking at the website, and let me just
I actually like that commercial. That's precisely what we're talking about. Um, I think you're on mute, Jack.
oh, sorry about that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're saying, doctor?
I'm saying that is exactly what we're talking about. So think about it this way. Orthotics also sort of customize a shoe to your foot, right? So shoes are made not based on you unless you're willing to spend $1,500, $2,000 to have a custom made shoe, right? But the average shoe is made off of what we consider norms, physical norms, right? But as a doctor, or as anybody would know, no, nothing ever fits what it shows in the books. It's just not like that. So your shoes, like sometimes for some patients who may not be able to afford an orthotic, I direct them to areas, for example, where, listen, there are certain shoes that will work better for your activities and as well as the anatomy, your unique anatomy, and the functions that you want to use it for, whether it be for work. Let's say you're working in construction, for example, you're going to want something a little bit more supportive, heavy duty. In sport, you want more flexibility. You want support. You want something with a little bit more bounce that could help you be more uh, athletically efficient. So I'm saying the commercial tells you exactly what I'm talking about, which is you're taking this device to customize your shoe to your foot because the outer part, the upper parts of the shoe, they provide some support, but the most important part of the shoe is the sole, what you're actually stepping on, right? And anything that could make that or enhance that and give you the best experience there is better for you on every level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been really, really nice to be able to talk about uh I mean holistically, right? It's the issue of the foot. It's one component of many parts in people's bodies, but it's essential when people are in pain, when people depend on their foot or their leg or feet for performance, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a police officer or teacher that's on your feet, teaching throughout the day. You are, a clergy member. You are, again, an athlete, a basketball player, a soccer player, a rugby player.
A
Um,
weekend warrior.
yeah, weekend warrior, or
Yeah,
a chronic shopper, that's walking
yeah,
through
yeah,
Sawgrass malls here in South
yeah.
Florida. Uh, this issue of giving yourself self care, loving yourself enough to to be able to get a custom insole. I mean, I know the technology behind this is fascinating, and our next podcast we're going to be discussing that more with not only you, doctor, but some other experts on the technology. But for now, people can actually go to netstepusa.com and read the briefs on the technology behind what they're doing and why they can make the bold claim that the world's most advanced orthotics. Um, but I think what we're talking about is really about love. We're talking about people being able to care for themselves, whether it's prevent pain, relieve pain, or enhance performance, right? As an athlete. But we're talking about not prefabricated, pre made orthotics, which you see out in the industry, but custom, exactly shape. We send you out an impression kit that you step into and it gets an exact mold of your foot. Or I know that they're going to be rolling out the scanner that comes with the phone app where people can scan their foot and get like 99.99% a precision of the actual foot and what type of insole it needs. So this is incredible technology coupled with 3D printing. And so I'm excited about not only what you're doing with NetStep, but what NetStep is doing globally. Historically, they've worked with doctors, but now they're taking this technology at a lower cost to the average Joe like me, so that I can get access to custom insoles and for my kids and for my wife and be able to take care of the family in a way. And what's amazing too is the fact that you can this stuff is interchangeable, meaning you could put it into your nice dress up shoes, you could put it in your basketball sneakers, uh, or just your everyday shoes. So it's really fascinating. Doctor, we got about another minute here. Any last words to our audience in this first podcast with Dr. Dominic Lewis?
So I would say think about it as you mentioned, self-love. It's investing in yourself and in your health.
Sure.
uh, we invest in the way we eat, the things we eat. We invest by we go to the gym and we exercise and all of those things. We simply we wear seatbelts when we drive our car. So it's a way of investing in yourself that we really have not explored well enough or explained well enough to our patients and our consumers. I actually have I've used the app, the the scanning app on the phone. I use it in my office now. So I would tell you, come on out. This is like revolutionary, evolutionary, and every kind of area you could think about. People will want to do this for different reasons, for different shoes. The same person may get one particular one for one type of shoe as opposed to a different type of shoe. The combinations and the permutations are endless. Invest in yourself, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Doctor. Well, we
Thank you,
appreciate you
Joe.
guys. Thank you for being on this first podcast of Next Step Talks. And if you need help, you're in the Miami area, reach out to Dr. Lewis and go to the website, netstepusa.com. Until next time, much love and peace.